Matt Walsh talks about all the drama when Joe Rogan supposedly endorsed RFK Jr., but he didn't really. He goes into all the drama. By the way, you're watching Bring the Asteroid. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe, like the video. We'll get right into it.
On Friday, it was reported all over social media that Joe Rogan had endorsed RFK Jr. on his podcast. And let's first listen to a clip. This is what the supposed endorsement consisted of.
That's just what they do. That's politics. They do it on the left. They do it on the right. They gaslight you. They manipulate you. They promote narratives. And the only one who's not doing that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
You a fan?
Yeah, I am a fan. Yeah, he's the only one that makes sense to me. He's the only one that he doesn't attack people. He attacks actions and ideas, but he's much more reasonable and intelligent. I mean, the guy was an environmental attorney and cleaned up the East River. I mean, he's a legitimate guy. You know, before anybody started calling him an anti-vaxxer, which I thought he was too. I thought he was this nut, this like conspiracy theorist nut, until I read his book. I read The Real Anthony Fauci, and I'm like, what is it? How much of this is real? Because if it's all real, this is insane, and we live in a world where we're being manipulated by these health organizations that are being paid by the pharmaceutical drug interests. And these pharmaceutical drug companies are pumping these products out into the population and telling us that we need them, and then making insane amounts of money. And then also the government is in on it, and also they share a patent with Moderna, and also they share profits, and there's $700 million, however much money was made, whatever the number is that these guys made off of these products. Like, this is, all of it is crazy.
Okay, now you may notice something about Rogan's endorsement of RFK Jr., which is that he did not endorse RFK Jr. He said nice things about him. He praised him. That's not the same thing as endorsing him. In fact, what Rogan said about RFK Jr. is no different than what he said about the guy in the past. He said all this same stuff in the past many times. There's no story here. There's nothing new. So Joe Rogan has the same view of RFK Jr. today that he had last week. That's the story. Now, even if Rogan had endorsed him, even if he had said, I am officially endorsing RFK Jr. for president, it still wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, certainly nothing to get upset about. Rogan is free to prefer whatever candidate he wants, endorse whatever candidate he wants. I like Joe, but I'm not voting based on who Joe endorses. And he doesn't expect anyone to vote based on that. In fact, Joe's been very clear when it comes to politics or anything else that he doesn't want his audience to just go blindly believe or follow whatever he says. Like, to his credit, he's always been pretty clear about that. He just gives.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan is pretty honest about, hey, I'm not a political expert here, so don't be taking my advice, but here's just my opinion. But people kind of take it and run with it, just like how he basically only said something positive about RFK Jr., and then everyone ran with it being an endorsement.
Giving his own take on it. This is what I think. You guys should think for yourself. So the whole thing's a non-issue. Not an endorsement, even if it was, like, who cares? Okay. It's Joe Rogan's not a Republican. I mean, that's not. Did anyone not know that?
Right? Like Joe Rogan in the past has endorsed Bernie Sanders, so why would people be shocked that he's not endorsing a Republican candidate for president?
But that's not how it was treated by certain segments of the right, especially on Twitter. There was a lot of anger and outrage over this. And in fact, I found out about it because I was, maybe like other people, I saw Joe Rogan trending on Twitter, and I thought, oh, okay, like, what's the left mad about this time, right? What are they complaining about this time with what Joe Rogan said? So I clicked on it, only to find, much to my chagrin, that he was trending this time because people on the right were whining about him because of this. The account Cat Turd, which is an account called Cat Turd, but it does have 2.7 million followers. That account, among others, spent all day attacking Joe. And he posted stuff like this, quote, so I've never been a Joe Rogan fan, can't stand him. Yes, he has a popular podcast, but I've always thought he was absolutely politically dumb. He's great at figuring things out 2 years after we do. What a legend. So did it surprise me when he endorsed idiot RFK Jr. today? LOL, no. We're talking about the same effing idiot who endorsed Bernie Sanders, right? He's the podcast equivalent of a dumb blonde joke. He also called his podcast gay and low IQ and dumb blonde again. He kept going on and on about the dumb blonde thing, along with a bunch of other insults that seemed to indicate that he's never listened to the podcast. I mean, you could say what you want about Rogan's show, but the guy, I mean, he'll have like a 3.5-hour conversation with an astronomer or an archaeologist. You call that what you want, but low IQ and dumb blonde just don't make any sense. There are probably no dumb blondes listening to Joe Rogan on a regular basis. So if you're going to insult someone, at least try to make sure that your insults bear some relation to your target. Unless he's saying that Joe Rogan himself is a dumb blonde, but Rogan is a 57-year-old bald guy. So I mean, no one's looking at Rogan and saying, "Oh, look at that dumb blonde." So I'm confused. Maybe it's because I'm a dumb blonde. I don't know. But let's not get hung up on that. Or on this one account that was attacking Rogan. This is just an example. And there were a lot of tweets like that from certain right-wingers who were very, very upset with Joe Rogan and basically swore him off as a moron and a tool because he endorsed.
Yeah, and this is like where the MAGA cult hurts themselves, and really they're just biting themselves in the foot, shooting themselves, biting themselves in the foot, shooting themselves in the foot, because when people talk about the MAGA cult and then you do precisely what the accusation is, it's no longer a Trump derangement syndrome. It's not like that, where it's like these people are completely insane, have no idea what they're talking about. It's like, no, the MAGA cult, they call it that because if you at all criticize Trump, even if you're a Trump supporter, they will come after you hardcore online and forever, and you'll always be labeled a traitor. So yeah, we should be allowed to question, especially people who we want to be president. And I think Joe Rogan's allowed to not endorse Trump, and he didn't even endorse RFK. It was all a lie.
Endorsed RFK Jr., even though he did not endorse RFK Jr. And that is what was going on. So I want to say something about this, and I already addressed it on Twitter, but I want to repeat the same point here on the show. And that is, first of all, Joe Rogan is a powerful cultural force, one that is, at a minimum, extremely friendly to conservatives. Countless times over the years, he has platformed, as the left would like to say, right-wing voices, very right-wing voices, okay? People who are far more right-wing than the conservatives who are attacking Joe Rogan now. Right? Like, he's given a platform to people who are much more based than the conservatives that are freaking out at Joe Rogan. He may not consider himself to be a conservative or to be a part of the conservative movement, and that's fine. He's still a net good for the culture and for conservatism, a significant net good. He might not be a conservative, but he's a friend to conservatives. And he's taken conservative positions that were extremely unpopular and pretty risky at the time that he took them. He did that with COVID, for example. He started openly questioning the trans agenda years ago. I mean, he was criticizing the trans agenda before many conservatives were criticizing it.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show, like, we should not be demonizing Joe Rogan. He's not our enemy. Not necessarily a friend, but hey, he's got a major podcast, and at least he's not a liberal, okay? At least he's not a liberal. Let me know what you guys thought. Think about this situation. Do you agree with Matt Walsh? Do you think conservatives are being crazy, or do you think the MAGA cult was going too hardcore, or do you agree with the MAGA people? Are you like, hey, we need to have staunch support for Trump. We need to defeat the Democrats, the communist Democrats. Let me know what you think below, because I think there's a case for both sides, and I'm kind of undecided as well. So I'll see you next time.